I was just like, there is this big talking about psychology, and I get the point because it's really important because you need to take care of yourself, you need to take care of your mind, especially your state of mind, okay? And I got that, and I completely agree with that. But especially in the beginning, I think people always overlook psychology because they think it's not going to affect them, but in the long run, they are going to realize that psychology it plays a very crucial part, especially if you are a discretionary trader or at least if you trade manually, right? The point for me would be that it's like it's one of those overlooked problems which is not so uh, evident up until the point it becomes evident. And
Yeah,
I was saying, you could keep on studying charts. You could keep on studying moving averages, stochastics, RSI, whatever kind of technical analysis you're following, and you might have on paper something which is working. And at a point, I guess numbers will show you that the only thing which is missing in all the big picture is yourself. Your basically inability to execute. And at that point, psychology really kicks in. And then you realize that maybe you need to work not only on the charts, but on yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your reasons? What kind of impulses you feel when you look at the charts, and what kind of feelings you experience when you are in a trade. And it's some sort of a counterintuitive mechanism because I guess a lot of newbies they tend to think that it's some sort of a mechanical game, and the goal of the game is just like trying to solve some sort of equation. But the market is it's way more than just a simple equation. It's
Well,
not like I'm going to buy here, not there, I'm going to be profitable. But the path that leads you from point A to point B has a lot to do with yourself as a person, as an individual. So
yeah.
I think that's the problem, and that's the point where people are gonna default back to their own psychology and to analyze themselves. You know?
So what you're describing right now is when people leave the discovery phase and enter the individuation phase. You know, because
Um,
essentially when you're when you start trading, you're looking around and looking for different information that you need, right? And
yeah,
that's natural, right? Because you know you have to do that in the very beginning, right? Or else how would you know anything? So
yeah, it is a process of elimination. Absolutely, yeah.
you're looking for
I kind of
information.
disagree a little. I kind of disagree a little bit in that this bit actually precedes the individuation bit. You can't actually get out of the discovery part without addressing your psychology. So when people don't address their psychology, what they do is they then flip from system to system to system to system, and they'll do that until they finally learn that they've got to look at something else that will allow
Well,
them to find the
Well,
system they need.
so
yeah, that
if you're looking at your
That's my
psychology, that
experience
is
personally.
inherently a process of individuation, right? Because if you're actually addressing your psychology, you're going inward, right?
Oh, I see what you
You
mean.
can't,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I see.
it's an
Sorry.
inward process, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I agree. Yeah,
like if
sorry.
you're actually addressing it, right? Instead of just reading books about it or, listening to podcasts about it. So I kind of see that as the individuation process. But to go back to the discovery process, basically, yeah, as a new trader, you're interacting with the market. There's people out there that you see that know more than you, so you need to decide what you need to know, what you don't need to know. But I think that process should be very brief, and you know you you don't want to spend a lot of time in that process, right? Because you're not actually growing in that process. That's an important.
no. On the other side, you're actually taking the chance to lose yourself in a bunch of different stuff, and at a point you're not gonna know how to make out all these informations.
Yeah,
What
and I would go
What
so far
process
as to
is
say that
psychology?
the trading development process doesn't actually start until you start that individuation process. And
Yeah, I think so too.
you know,
Yeah, but it's very individual as to how long that process actually is anyway. Because
Yeah,
right,
some
but you feel
some people
if
like
you're
me,
still in
for
the
example,
discovery
it takes me
phase,
18 months.
if
For
you're
someone
still in that
else, it might only
discovery
take six
phase,
months. Like,
you can get in a situation where you're learning stuff, you're reading a bunch of books and taking a bunch of courses, and learning all this stuff, and that feels like progress, but it's actually not.
you
no,
can't learn psychology from books. This is purely experiential. You can only experience it, and until you actually realise that you've got to get this by experience, it's going to be difficult to progress anyway because you'll just
yeah,
keep reading books on it,
I
and
was
reading books isn't going to help. You need to
no,
actually feel what's going on. You need to interact with the market to
I was
understand what's going on.
I was just trying to get to that point essentially, where essentially, at a point where, let's say you identify what you would like to do and what kind of ad you would like to use, because maybe on paper you've seen that that kind of ad actually guarantee you a specific amount of return in a specific amount of time, whatever. Okay. Now the problem is when you realize you're not actually able to execute that edge. Okay. So my point would be there are a lot of many different books which are good about psychology, trading psychology and whatnot. But let's say, and again, let's be completely honest about that. Let's face it. At a specific point in your development, once you have the edge you want to use figure out, okay, and you know for a fact that that edge will grant you that kind of return in a specific amount of time, if you recognize that you're not able to apply that edge, maybe it could be because of uncertainty, it could be because you're too reckless or you don't have patience. Uh, Again, it's like, do you think like if you recognize that you're basically failing a lot of trades because you are impatient, okay? Do you think that getting back to read a book about psychology will fix your problem about being impatient? No, I mean it's like, do I need patience? Yeah, so I'm gonna be patient. I don't need a fucking book to tell me how to be patient. It's something that either I have it or I'm gonna develop it. That specific trait. And whether if I read one book, two books, whatever books you want to read about being patient, uh, if I'm not patient myself, a book is not, it's not gonna help me.
I go so far as to say you can't get this from books. I think at this point in your study, this is the point where you realise that actually you do need a mentor. I don't think you can break through this without external help, and I don't think anybody does. I don't believe the traders that just made it on themselves. I think the only traders that actually make money are ones that have had a mentor. Because the thing is, you can't see it yourself. You can't see your own behavior. And if you do, you keep repeating it and you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it because that's what we know. You need someone else to come in and say, stop doing that behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, even it could be a book, it could be a mentor. But at a point,
A
you
book
Well,
have
can't tell you.
so
A
let
book
me let
can't
me
tell
stop
you
you
what
guys there
behavior
real
you should do.
quick. Let me stop you guys there. And
it
the
just
difference
first of
between
all that point.
what Rob is mentioning and reading a book or some course online is that the mentor knows you and knows you as an individual and is able to
Yes,
tailor
exactly.
his advice to you as a person, right? Whereas a book
And
can't
I
do
don't think
that, right? It's just a cookie
yeah,
cutter
I don't,
formula.
I don't
That
think
that
you,
is
I
that
don't
is
think you
true.
can progress
Yeah,
with that.
it's a
I
much
really
more
don't
close
think you can progress without
relationship with a
it.
mentor. Yeah,
I really don't think you can progress without it. I really don't think it's possible. I think this is why these statistics of 95% of people fail because they don't know, they don't even know to go and find a mentor. I mean, I only know to go and find a mentor from being on Crown's course when he said a few times in his streams and on the Twitch streams that I've seen, he says, you have to get a mentor. If you're going to succeed, you have to find a mentor. And for a while, it got me really worried. I'm like, how am I going to find a mentor? How am I going to find one eventually? But you have to put in the effort to find one. And if you have to massage someone's ego or something, that's what you have to do. If you have to pay for your mentorship, which is what I've done, then that's what you have to do. But you have to get under the skin of the trading world and not
Yeah.
just reading books, watching videos, joining courses is on the surface. You need to get under the skin. You need to be able to get to that deeper level if you're ever going to progress.
You
And
know, again,
everybody
even
thinks you otherwise. I don't
you know,
understand.
and if you really wanna take it to the extremes, right? Even if you have a mentor, okay, because I totally agree with that. Having someone which you can have real close talking one on one. It's obviously is useful, and it's much more useful than reading a book which is very general, very random. But even at that point, if you realize you cannot do what your mentor is suggesting you to do, it still comes down to the individual, because at a point is either, if you accept to change yourself in order to be profitable, you're gonna make it. If you don't, or if you cannot, you're not gonna make it.
Well, a lot of trading as well is about attitude. So
Exactly.
if you have can't written somewhere in your brain, then can't is what you'll get.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, this feeds into a kind of different topic, but it's one I'm quite keen on about optimism and pessimism. If you have an optimistic view on things, you'll forever be looking for opportunities. If you have pessimism, you'll be trying to find anything which will validate your pessimism, which will drag you down.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, trying to flip over to the optimistic side, that can be really difficult, and that can come at a price at some levels. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
a tricky one. It's a tricky one because people are pessimistic for a reason. People are optimistic for a reason. Um, some people are born optimistic. I think it's definitely a result of your environment, so your upbringing. It's not something built into our genes. I think that's environmental as to whether
No,
you're
yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. It
yeah.
was just, my point was essentially about kind of stressing out a point that it all comes down to the individual. Let's say you could be
Absolutely,
in whatever mentorship you want to be, okay? And let's put it this way. Maybe you've been in XYZ mentorship, not mentioning names, right? But let's say you have been in a mentorship and you really put your faith in the author, right? At a point, let's say you have been 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in, and you get out to your mentor, you reach out to him, and you say, you know what, dear sir, I kind of appreciate the contents you have put out, and I kind of understand them, but at a point, I recognize I cannot execute them. So what can I do? And for me personally, the best answer your mentor in that situation could give you would be, maybe you're not cut out to be a trader.
but surely that's just down to practice. I think that's I I'll always reject that statement. I'm afraid because it feeds into me because 18 months later I'm still losing most trades that I'm doing at the moment, and turn around and say you're not cut out to be a trader. I don't believe that for 1 minute. That's like telling someone that they can't be a musician or they can't learn to dance or they can't learn to rock climb or I
It
don't think that's
spurs
the
you.
case.
It should spur you to do something more.
I think encouraging somebody, I think it comes from within. It's up to you whether you give up or not. It's not up to someone else to tell you that. And so I'd reject that statement straight
Yeah,
off because
well, but that's exactly the point. At that point, when even your mentor tells you that you're not cut out to be a trader, you're not good enough. At that point, it's up to you proving it wrong. You know?
but I think that's a really irresponsible thing to say to somebody. If I was mentoring somebody at anybody, I'd never turn around and say you're not cut out to do this. Very negative way to say it. And if someone said that to me, I'd be
You
questioning
know, if you, you
why did I even look at this person in the first place? Don't forget, finding a personal journey is a personal thing. So you will gravitate to somebody that will work for you. If you want to find someone that will turn around and say you're not cut out for this, then that's immediately a losing strategy. And why did you even start trading in the first place?
Yeah, the problem for me is this: if you spend 2 years in my program, in my course, or whatever, and I'm giving you all the informations I have, all right, at that point I have given you everything I could give you, and at this point, if you still cannot perform, it's not up to me. It's up to you, because the informations are good. So at that point, it's come up to the individual. So if you are not able to apply the information I'm giving you, it's not my problem. It's yours. And at that point, I think it's pointless to keep on babysitting people just to keep them in the program. I think
But
straight
that's
up
not a
honesty
mentor's
is
job.
even
A
better.
mentor's job isn't a mentor's job to give you advice. It's not to babysit somebody. I have to admit, I definitely reject that way of being. If a mentor said that to me, I'd be furious. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
and what would you
no,
do
let
with
me say
that?
my point. No, let me say my point. My point's important, man.
What would you
Um,
do with that
no,
anger?
my point is important here. I need to say this point. It's about boundaries, right? Personal boundaries are really important, yeah? And you should never be overstepping the boundary and giving somebody that negative feedback. Personally, I don't think so.
Well, think about other environments, even in sports like soccer, football. How many coaches do you think have gone out there telling athletes you're not cut out to this?
None.
Not
None.
really.
No. Yeah, because
I don't think so.
you don't make the grade, you don't get the coach. You're not going to just. Do you know what I mean? Sportsmen are sponsored, right? They're sponsored and they get sponsored from winning competitions. Their natural progression is because they're winners, and so coaches go towards them, right? So it's not about that. But giving people a negative, saying you're not cut out for this, I think is highly irresponsible because you're feeding right into someone's neurology of whether they feel like a loser or not. And I think that's a hot. That's something that I don't know. I don't. For me, that really sits in a very uncomfortable space.
Well, feeling like a loser is up to yourself. It comes down
Well,
to your
Okay,
I
okay,
would say
I've got a
this:
question for you then.
if you tell somebody that they're never going to make it, that's inherently wrong, right? Because it's not taking into
I think so.
consideration the potential for them to make the changes that they need to make, which that potential is always there, right? They could,
Yeah,
there's no,
absolutely.
for you to say that that potential doesn't exist is just going to be, it's going to be inaccurate because you just don't know that, right? People can make those changes. So I think a better way to frame it would be like, if you're going to be successful, these are the changes that you need to make, and if you can't make those changes, then it's just not going to work.
I mean, that's a
yeah.
better way to do it. But
Oh
essentially,
well, if you want to soften the pill, okay, I got that. But
well, no, it's not about softening the pill. We're talking about huge people's lives and people's psychology here. Nobody has the right to turn around and say to somebody they're a loser or not. We say it to you say it to belittle somebody in an argument, or you say it to belittle someone you don't like. But somebody that's come to you as a mentorship, it's incredibly irresponsible to turn around and say, "Sorry, mate, you're never going to make it because you're a loser." That's
yeah,
what you're
but
saying to somebody. It's not fair.
stuff like that happens to university as well. You
No,
got
it
professors.
doesn't.
You got professors that tell you you're not cut up to this job.
Well,
It's
That's
not
hold
their
on,
the
the guy,
responsibility.
the
Listen,
irony though
listen,
is that, the irony though
it's
is
not their
that,
responsibility to say that. I'm really fired up about this. I think it's really
well,
important.
I'm
It's
not
not
saying it's fair. I'm just saying that's what happens.
it's not about fair. It's not about fair. This is about if you're trying to learn something, you're trying to get to a goal, right? You don't want to hang around with people that are calling you a loser. You're the sum of the people you hang around with, right? Let me ask you a question, Matthew. Um, how long do you think it takes to become a profitable trader?
From 4 to 6 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And you think if uh, do you think I'm not cut out to be a trader because I'm still losing every trade after a year and a half? Would you turn around to me and say you haven't got it, mate? You ought to go in the bin and walk away,
I could.
or would you admire the fact that it's what I really want to do and I will grind until I get there, no matter how long it takes me?
I can't make that statement
10
because
years.
you don't know
Huh?
your trading. I can't make the statement because I don't know you. I don't know your trading. It's a completely different thing.
I think
I just think it's irresponsible to be.
an important thing to say here is that ultimately, whether someone's opinion